And one.
Welcome to the Living Large Theater Podcast. Billy Santiago here, along with my good friend of 36 years, Gary Rodriguez, super producer Noe Ayala. You can reach out to us at livinglargetheater@gmail.com. We're available on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Amazon Prime, the iHeart Podcast Network. You can reach out to our super producer, Noe, if you want to become a sponsor of this fine show, 956-451-1633. Rate the podcast, share it with a friend, leave us a comment, and more importantly, hit that subscribe button.
Thank you, Billy. Admission to the Living Large Theater is always free. All you need is a sense of humor and a thirst for entertainment. And since today is a 30-minute show, we're going to get to it and welcome our special guest, Mr. Ted Nugent. Ted!
Gary, Billy, how have you had a Living Large podcast without me yet? I am the Living Large daddy.
You just kicked us up a notch, man. You just kicked us up a notch, and we want to thank you for entering the Living Large Theater. And, you know, we're just huge fans of yours, and we want to thank you, Linda Peterson, Tommy Gendrush, and my friend David Hassler, retired PD sergeant from McAllen PD, for helping us get the Ted Nugent, Uncle Ted, the Nuge, in our podcast. And welcome. Now, your first three albums, or three of your first albums, went multiple platinum. That's Ted Nugent, Free for All, and Cat Scratch Fever. That was, man, those are huge benchmarks. What did that do for your career?
Well, you know, I'm sitting here in the man cave cuckoo's nest arsenal of democracy with my beloved hunting dogs, Coco, Sadie, and Jackson. So let's keep things in perspective, gentlemen, shall we?
Absolutely.
Sure.
I mean, I'd like to think that as a guitar player, you know, inspired by the gods of rhythm and blues and soulful music and defiance, I might add, Little Richard. Let a punk band go up against Little Richard someday. Anyhow, I was born at the right time when Les Paul electrified the guitar. Thank God. Thank you, Les Paul. And those albums you just mentioned, you know, you guys are living large, and Gary and Billy, I understand that you guys are truth, logic, and common sense guys, so you obviously deserve me. But those records are the soundtrack for living large, putting your heart and soul into being the best that you can be, surrounding yourself with people that are dedicated to absolute martial arts, samurai excellence in their given craft. And I have been so blessed and humbled and honored all my life, starting in 1957, 1958, I started a little combo in Detroit, and we were playing Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley music and trying to play Little Richard music, but we were way too Caucasian at first. The point being is that those albums are awesome, but the memories and the stimuli, the inspiration that those musicians on those records, and it goes all the way back to the Amboy Dukes. I started recording with just a bunch of amazing, gifted virtuosos. We were just punk-ass kids in Detroit, you know, 14, 15 years old, but we were inspired by those so dedicated. James Brown is the number one inspiration, the hardest working man in show business until I showed up. But the point is I've sold 40 million albums. I'm still making music. I still have unbelievably work ethic, dedicated, heart and soul musicians at my side. Jason Hartless on drums and Johnny Big on bass guitar, my crew. You mentioned Linda Peterson, my personal assistant. My life is such a whirlwind, but again, I manage that whirlwind because nothing's more whirlwind and threatening in many ways than playing guitar like I do. And then I learned to shut up. Can you believe it? Gary and Billy, Ted Nugent, I have learned to shut up, and I bring it back to the mystical flight of the arrow, the conservation, environmental responsibility of hunting, fishing, and trapping, ranching, farming. These are the people that are at my side every day.
You're a well-rounded man.
Yeah, those records and those songs, we still play them today. I still play a song by Joe Williams, Baby Please Don't Go, that I think he recorded in 55, 56. And I still play that in 2024. So the heart and soul of the best music in the world, which comes from soul music, gospel, rhythm and blues, the blues, and then how we accelerated, or how Little Richard accelerated into this rock and roll celebration.
Yeah.
But it's still alive and well. And here I'm 76 years old, having the time of my life. How do I do this?
You're amazing. Now, one of my favorite songs, I guess, when you were with the Amboy Dukes was Journey to the Center of the Mind. And I was watching a video of you playing that, and I was like, how does he get his fingers to do that? So throughout the years, have your fingers held up? Are there any side effects from doing that for so long on the electric guitar with your hands?
Well, Gary, the most important thing is both of my middle fingers work really good. They're really, they get a lot of exercise. My middle fingers, like as I'm speaking to you right now on the Living Large podcast, my middle fingers, they're both on fire right now.
I bet they are.
I'm looking around me in my barn in the swamps of Michigan, the sacred swamps of Michigan, where I'm having the best hunting season of my life with the best hunting dogs, and my wife, Shemaine. How about my wife, Shemaine, the queen of the forest, Little Miss Dangerous? If you see her on our Spirit of the Wild TV show on the Pursuit Channel, that this dangerous Detroit woman has become the most deadly bow hunter in the world. It's the inspiration it's immeasurable. I'm pretty good with the English language, but I'm struggling to find the words to adequately describe the joy of my guitar playing this morning, waking up with Shemaine and Sadie and Jackson and Coco, doing my chores, going out to the swamp. I just came in from the swamp, so if I sound a little bit uppity, it's because I'm inspired by the swamp.
Well, and you're an inspiring man, Ted, and you're very blessed. And Shemaine's show is called Faith and Freedom, and it airs Sunday on Real America's Voice. What's that show about? What's the message that comes out on that broadcast?
Well, as you guys celebrate Living Large starts with quality of life prioritization, if I do say so myself, which I do. And right now, when we have a satanic cult in charge of our government, those are painful words to say, but when you've got this freak zombie, criminal, corrupt monster that thinks he's the president, Joe Biden and his gang, this is so heartbreaking that you have to think, you have to prioritize, which we did in the most recent election. People actually put their mind and their heart and soul to work, and we elected a great man, Donald Trump. So,
amen, man. That was an answer to many, many prayers. I say Kamala lost to prayer.
And that's what Shemaine celebrates, faith and freedom. It's on Real America's Voice. People should go. I guess it's Real America's Voice.
Yeah, we'll find it. Absolutely.
But she when I met her, she had never touched a gun or a bow and arrow, and she actually listened to I don't know what kind of music was that? The disco music. But I fixed her in about 8 minutes. And she came to realize that she'd been bombarded by nasty anti-American propaganda in the anti-education system, and that the quality of life that is unique to America begins with God, family, country, Constitution, Bill of Rights, 10 Commandments, Golden Rule, work ethic, law and order, and all that radical stuff that's against the law in Washington.
Amen.
And so she has taken on this responsibility, and it is a duty to speak up as an experimenter in self-government. That's why I'm called a radical all the time, because I'm radical, because I actually experiment in self-government, and I, Ted Nugent, am in charge of my life.
Yes,
I've been clean and sober for 76 years, and when you don't poison your sacred temple and your heart and soul and your mind with drugs and alcohol and tobacco, if you don't poison yourself, you can actually form syllables like I am right now, not to be confused with Ozzy or Joe Biden. By the way, we're having a benefit concert here coming up. We're going to try to buy Joe and Ozzy a syllable. Anyhow, the point is that Shemaine and I have a Real America Voice Spirit Campfire, and of course I weave in politics, because politics is we the people demanding constitutional accountability. So if you ever hear somebody go, well, I'm not into politics, well, then you might want to move to Cuba, where you're not allowed to have a voice.
That's right.
So
That's
I
right.
have a big mouth, and I speak up for truth, logic, and common sense on my Real America's Voice, on our Spirit of the Wild TV show for 35 years now, 8 times a week on the Pursuit Network. And thank you, everybody, for supporting this, because I've always been labeled a radical by the government, by big tech, by Hollywood. They just bombard hate and lies upon me, and
Yep.
I consider it a badge of honor.
How and why, Ted, do you think people give up their soul to just get along and go along with what's going on around them and not really have a clue that they are draining their own spirit?
Boy, well stated, Gary. They are intentionally draining their spirit, because the answer to your question, why did people abandon their responsibility to stand up for the Constitution and real justice, not to be confused with the so-called Supreme Court? By the way, the Supreme Court, thank God there's a Supreme Court, huh, guys? Because they determined that you have to be an American citizen to vote. Wow.
Duh.
Without them, we would have never figured that out.
Oh, man.
It's unbelievable. So I was lucky. I was raised in Detroit as we won against the Japs and the Nazis, the evil forces, and the GIs sacrificed for our freedom. And difficult times make strong men.
Amen.
Strong men make easy times.
Amen.
Easy times make weak, fat, subservient, slow, dependent people, and that we're just coming out of that now with the recent election. So if I'm offending somebody on here, you probably need to be offended, because if you destroy your body with alcohol, tobacco, and drugs, you're the problem. You're killing yourself, and God gave you the gift of life, and I can't imagine how stupid you would have to be to poison that gift of life. I'm baffled by that.
Well, I know that so many people actually thought that you were on drugs because of your high energy and the way you jump from, the rafters and from the speakers, and you're out there just playing your guitar, but you've never had a drug in you. And that, to me, that is a badge of honor.
That's that middle finger at work.
There you go.
My dad disciplined me. Whoa, there's a great word. Is there any word more important than discipline? I don't think
it all starts there, man.
And
it all starts there.
I could have been the poster child to go off the rails and become a dirtbag, just to defy him. But when I realized that his discipline was necessary for me to show up to a gig on time, for me to play guitar really good with the bass and drums, to really be an effective, positive force.
You had to be firing on all cylinders.
Yes, it's so simple, it's stupid. So, and I think we're seeing a lot, and I get a little spoiled, because my band, my crew, guys like you guys like Tommy Jerndrich, these people are rock solid in the asset column, because they take risks, make sacrifices to be productive and to be good and to be a positive force in their family, in their neighborhood, their community, our great nation, and the land as conservationists. So the system by which you can go to sleep at night really, really fulfilled and happy is so simple. And when people are not happy, it's because they've made stupid choices based on this insanity called peer pressure.
Yeah.
It's insanity. You've got to think, man. Think.
Listen, man, I saw you live at the Texas Jam in the Cotton Bowl in 1978. I was stationed in the Army at Fort Hood, Texas. We all piled into my friend Chuck Ferrer's pickup truck and drove up there. And you were a madman on the guitar. You had the audience in the palm of your hands, and I've been a huge fan of yours ever since. What was that like on stage, and what was it like backstage at that concert?
Well, I remember it so well. I was like Bruce Lee with a Glock and a Gibson. I mean, even though there wasn't a Glock yet back then, I think I was carrying a Smith & Wesson Model 19 2-inch on nickel with Remington 125 grain plus P plus 38 specials. Anyhow, the point is, those memories I can conjure up the temperature, because it was 108 degrees that day.
It was hot.
Pretty hot that day. Yep.
They were hosing the people down. But see, I'm a fan of the music before I'm a musician. So my musicianship is the pursuit of inspiring my musical love, the love of what Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley and Little Richard and Motown and James Brown, all these masters of this unbelievable, powerful, authoritative musical force in our life. They happen to all be black because that's the emotion and the defiance and that middle finger against slavery that they channeled into their powerful music. We didn't know it back then. We know it now. Some of us do. But I remember that day because my band, the energy, and again, you mentioned a lot of people thought I was stoned. Well, if I was stoned, I would have fallen off the amps. I was like I was like the flying Walendas.
Yeah, you were.
Right.
You were. But you go against the grain. I mean, on that bill that day was Aerosmith, Journey, Heart, Eddie Money, Van Halen, and Ted Nugent. And I think you were the only one that was really sober out there.
And and I know all those guys. You just mentioned some of the greatest bands, the greatest musicians, the greatest songs. How about those bands? What
Beautiful
amazing
music, beautiful.
soundtracks
A
they
different
have made for
time,
our
a
life.
different age in music.
But as good of friends as they all are, and I don't think Ann and Nancy Wilson of Heart, I don't think they were ever blathered. It was impossible to talk to Stephen or Joe.
Oh, I
They
bet.
couldn't form a syllable. But there's a great relationship I have with so many of those musicians, and the ones that were right on the precipice of death because of the substance abuse. They've come back from it for the most part, and they're friends of mine. I admire their work ethic because I don't think Gary and Billy, people understand the work ethic of the average band in America, the
God.
rehearsals and the logistics. It can be such a pain in the ass to get to that 2-hour stage performance, the travel. I was just on the phone with the guys in REO Speedwagon last night, and they're driving 500 miles a night in a bus, and I'm allergic to buses. I can't get on a bus. I think it's a long drive to my tree stand that's across the lake.
Well, it's a
so
craft for you, right? Your music is a craft. You improve, you get better, you want to get better, and you're leaving your mark as a musician, not just a singer and songwriter. But I mean, those are great qualities, being a singer and a songwriter. But to be a true musician, I think it makes you exemplary in the world of music.
And so is Stevie Ray Vaughan, and so is Aerosmith, so is Sammy Hagar, so is the Van Halen guys. Again, these guys are we qualify as berserk, dedicated to make our music intense, adventurous, grooving, tight, authoritative. And again, I hearken back to the inspiration to every band you just mentioned and every band you could mention, and that's James Brown,
Yeah.
and Wilson Pickett and Motown.
So that's like the common denominator for what followed after them.
Yes, it always will be. So yeah, I'm not unique. I'm unique in my clean and sober. I think Ricky Medlock of Blackfoot, and now with Leonard Skinner, he's been clean and sober. I can't mention. I don't know anybody else. Gene Simmons of Kiss, I think he's remained clean and sober. But again, what is life if you can't have a communication?
Yeah,
You and I are talking about things that inspire us, and I think the listeners are inspired by such positive focus. But a lot of those musicians, because the music, it's hard to get rid of a song. When you're working on a song day after day and you make it as tight as you can so that paying customer gets the ultimate delivery and performance, it's sometimes impossible to get rid of that song, and it'll drive you nuts. So most of those guys went to drugs and alcohol. I went to my bow and arrow in the target range and training hunting dogs. Thank God, huh?
Hey, Ted, you have a ranch here in Texas as well, don't you?
Yeah, we're Texas residents. We're real Texans.
Nice.
Oh, okay.
Austin.
Hey, how did you meet Tommy Gendrouche?
Well, Tommy's a real McCoy. Tommy, when I need lettuce and watermelons and celery, I know who to call. I get connected with the best Americans, entrepreneurs, and again, people of the earth. The ultimate compliment is when you're down to earth and grounded. And the ultimate down to earth and grounded is farming and ranching, and producing the life sustenance of the food production of this nation. So Tommy had invited me down to hunt nilgai in the wilds of South Texas and to hunt hogs because there's so much incredible game opportunities down there. And he was kind enough to bring me into his ranch and show me around, and I get invitations like that. So he and I become blood brothers. But even guys that I'm not able to accept the invitations that I dearly appreciate, there's still a core of heart and soul constitutional blood brothers out there, and this last election proved that finally hunters that have never registered to vote finally got up and voted.
Yeah.
And we beat the margins, and that was an organization. I hope people will go to hunternation.org. Hunternation.org went after those millions, tens of millions of hunters and fishermen and gun owners that don't vote. We got a bunch of them to vote, and look what happened.
Not voting to me is the epitome of irresponsibility.
So Ted, really quick, going back to the music, what do you think about today's music now in the rock scene?
Well, the classic stuff, the bands you just mentioned, the bands that I've toured with all my life, they're still hot to trot. I mean, Sammy's out there with the best of both worlds, with incredible musicians and music. Like I said, I was on the phone with REO Speedwagon, Loverboy last night. There, Styx, my buddy Tommy
Mike
Shaw,
Reno.
Night Ranger is out there all the time. I did, I think, 60 concerts last year. It's the last tour. I'm still doing gigs. We're gonna be doing Billy Bob's in Dallas coming up here, not this New Year's, but next New Year's, I hope.
Nice.
I'm still doing gigs, but I'm not going to go on the road. Again, I'm looking at Sadie and Coco and Jackson on the barn floor right now.
Yeah, you found a comfort zone.
They cry when I leave. So I'm not going to tour. I still do gigs. I did a bunch of gigs this year, but they're one-offs, and my band is always ready to go. And I do what I call some Ted Nugent speakeasies in Texas every winter with Calvin Ross and a bunch of my buddies, Johnny Big and John Kutz on drums. So the music is, I just played my Gibson Birdland this morning, and I'm playing notes and I'm playing patterns that God hasn't even authorized yet. I mean,
That's awesome, man. Well, I'm going to invite you, Ted, if you're able to come into our studio. We have a pretty good studio here. It's called Majestic Studios in McAllen, Texas. We'd like to have you here sometime in person, just to sit and get to know you and share more of your inspiration and your spirituality for those who aspire to pick up a guitar and join a band, or pick up a bow and a rifle and go out and hunt their own meals, or talk about God. You have an open invitation to join us here inside the Living Large Theater podcast.
And I know that, and I dearly appreciate that, Gary and Billy. Thank you very much. And thank you guys for doing what the Founding Fathers wanted all Americans to do, to speak up, to stand for God, family, country, Constitution, law and order, all the important foundational quality of life priorities. So thank you for that. Thank you for the kind invitation. If I get down there with Tommy and the boys to kill some nilgai on the East Ranch and some of those beautiful South Texas whitetails, I will warn you, and I'd love to come to McAllen. I love that part of the world.
That's awesome, man. We're going to welcome you. Let me mention our sponsors right now, Mr. Nugent, then we'll get back to you. White Sands Marina, Port Isabel, Texas. Ted, you got to visit this place. It's White Sands Marina, Port Isabel, Texas. It is your destination for all things family. Great fishing, great dining, a great marina for your boat, and a great bar for your libations. White Sands Marina, Port Isabel, Texas. Owned and operated by U.S. military veterans Arnold and Corina Flores. Also, Pretty Little Paws Pet Grooming at White Sands Marina in Port Isabel. Treat your pet to the total package at Pretty Little Paws for only $39.95. Ward Thomas, Majestic Studios. Need a place to jam out or record in a professional studio? That is Majestic Studios, 2037 Orchid in McAllen, Texas. And Fred Rodriguez, the Texas Sportsman, recognized by the Texas Senate as the premier hunting and fishing guide of South Texas. Hey, Ted, you and Tommy got to go fishing or hunting with Fred Rodriguez, a Texas Sportsman. You will love it. He's got it all for you. And I told him we were going to be talking with you today, and he said, man, make sure that you know he has an open invitation to go hunting or fishing, and that is Fred Rodriguez, the Texas Sportsman. Ted, thank you for your patience. What are your thoughts on the state of America right now?
Well, we took a final positive turn with this recent election where people who were disconnected, they dwelled on their ignorance of the Constitution and real law and order. This self-inflicted curse by our failed court system of engineered recidivism. 99% of violent crime is repeated by guys that come out because they're let out by our failed court system.
Yeah, big
And,
time.
So
you
true.
know, again, I could get spoiled because I'm up here in the swamps of Michigan. I'm on my way to Texas here next week. We come back to Texas right after Thanksgiving, and the hunting will continue. So my inner circle quality people is so perfect. I mean, I could think that the world is perfect, but I know that Joe Biden is evil. I know that the ATF is evil. I know that the Texas Parks and Wildlife is evil. They've turned into jackbooted thugs. They're playing on this lie called chronic wasting disease, and they're slaughtering thousands of healthy deer.
Have they ever have they ever harassed you down here?
Oh, they've issued an arrest warrant. Think of this. The Texas Parks and Wildlife expect me to turn white-tailed deer heads into the Texas veterinarian who has got more false positives than proper determination, slaughtering healthy deer, and they expect me to turn my deer heads into a corrupt, dishonest, inept, mistake-riddled state veterinarian. This is like having your babysitter rape your child, and the state still expects you to hire the babysitter that raped your child.
That is
The
sick,
Texas
man.
Parks and Wildlife, I challenge them right now on Living Large. I challenge somebody from Texas Parks and Wildlife to come on my Real America Voice Spirit Campfire and dare to explain why you're following the lie of chronic wasting disease that has never hurt a deer herd anywhere in the world, but Parks and Wildlife is slaughtering healthy herds for no reason other than corruption and greed from big donors. That I know what I'm saying right now is real disruptive because that's my job. So Texas Parks
We need
and
more
Wildlife,
disruptors.
here's a little instruction for you, Texas Parks and Wildlife. Think, man. Think. You know chronic wasting disease does not threaten the deer herd. It's never hurt a deer herd. For every case of chronic wasting disease, there are tens of millions of new fawns born. Meanwhile, episodic hemorrhagic disease has killed millions of deer, and they're not worried about that because they're getting taxpayer grants to lie to us and slaughter healthy deer herds. I'm telling you, Gary and Billy, I expect San Francisco to be corrupt and anti-American. I expect Chicago. I expect those Baltimore. Texas Parks and Wildlife has turned into the enemy of conservation families in the state of Texas. This is the biggest heartbreaker I can mention right now.
I think President Trump should nominate Ted Nugent for Secretary of Common Sense.
Well, we'd run out of rope, I can tell you that.
Hey, are you still on the board of directors for the NRA, or has that?
No, but I served proudly for 29 years with the most votes this side of Charlton Heston, I believe. And
Amen.
I thank everybody because the Second Amendment isn't a hunch; it's a self-evident truth. And as a free man, God gave me the right to carry a gun wherever I may wander while I'm alive. I don't need a permit, and I don't need somebody going, "Hey, we give you constitutional carry." I was born with constitutional carry,
Amen.
you numbnuts. It's unbelievable. And again, guys, I love Texas, but Luby's Cafeteria, so 24 Texans were slaughtered because they obeyed an infringement. They weren't allowed to carry a gun in a restaurant in Texas.
That was
and they
sad
all
when that
died?
happened up in Killeen. It was awful. Have you ever thought of running for office, Ted?
My middle fingers are working overtime. No, I'd rather, I'm 76. I've got a lot of responsibilities. I got 13 grandkids I have to teach to turn the deer into family-sized portions. I have a lot of responsibilities. I'm still making music. I do a lot of media. I think my big mouth for real constitutional freedom is more important than actually running for office. So I'm putting pressure on elected employees to adhere to their constitutional oath. Think of what I just said, guys. Who out there is failing at their number one American responsibility to hold their elected employees to constitutional oath? That's our job, and that's what I do.
There you go. Hey, what are your thoughts on the grip that Joe Rogan has on influencing millions of listeners through the Joe Rogan experience?
Well, Joe and I are good friends. I've been on his show 2 times. I think we set records both times because I'm a little different. I don't know if you've noticed, but yeah, he's a force to reckon with because he's got truth, logic, common sense, like you guys, and all the evidence to support it. People have a right to a First Amendment hunch and an opinion, but truth, logic, and common sense and the evidence to support that should be the guiding light for all regulations and laws in America. And right now, 99.9% of laws and regulations in America have nothing to do with truth, logic, and common sense. So,
Dude,
Joe
they're
is a
trying to
force to reckon with.
criminalize opinion. They're trying to criminalize opinion. And to me,
Oh yeah, they've tried to.
that is
they've tried to shut me up. Yeah, they've tried.
You can
wildly
have
to
an
shut
opinion.
me up.
You have to have an opinion.
Hey,
You
Ted.
have, but to form an opinion takes effort and dedication to research so that you don't just pull it out of your ass.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whoopi Goldberg is the master of just pulling out nonsense. And
What a
claiming it as
skank.
how about people? People will tell you that venison is not food. Well, that's I suppose that's an opinion, but it's wrong.
That's awful, man.
Hey, Ted, a music question here from a fan from back in the 70s. I used to work in this rock club and used to play Ted all the time. What inspired the song Wangle Tangle? I've always wondered about that.
Well, I've avoided drugs, alcohol, tobacco, and poisoned food. My idea of fast food is a mallard. So, so in the absence of all those indulgences, how do we put this mildly? I don't think you can. Women, I really, really love the gift of women. And I can tell you what a woman is, even though a Supreme Court justice who is a woman.
That's the
can't
best
tell
thing
you
God
that.
ever made was woman.
So there's some sensuality and sexuality in the best music, and all my music has an element of that. And whether it's Wang Dang Sweet Poontang, the number one love song in history, by the way, and a song called Little Miss Dangerous. You guys remember the baby boom?
Of course. I'm
Yeah,
of
well,
it. I was born in 58, so I'm a boomer.
Yeah, that was me.
There.
The music, the best music is really, really sexy. And Wango Tango was just an insane take on being sexy.
Yeah.
There we go.
There you go. Well said.
That inspiration, and again, I don't know if you've ever seen Mrs. Nugent, but good Lord in heaven, is she beautiful?
I've seen a picture of Shemaine. She's beautiful. Beautiful. And I can tell that faith is the foundation for your relationship with Shemaine.
Yeah, faith and freedom. People should turn into Real America's Voice. Shemaine Nugent, Faith and Freedom. She is a force to reckon with, and there's nothing not sexy about faith and freedom.
Well, we're going to get our super producer Noe to put some of that up on when we post this podcast. Hey, Ted, which is more dear and near to your heart, cat scratch fever or stranglehold?
Geez, I cannot differentiate.
I didn't think you would.
The songs I've got, my new album is called Adios Mope. My new album is called Detroit Muscle. And there's songs on that. There's a song called Winter, Spring, Summer, Fall Instrumental. I have a song called Fred Bear that I can't fail to perform, that is connected with so many people out there. But all my music is, I can't wait to play those licks, those grooves, those grinds, those songs. So I can't really, it's like, which is my favorite dog or which is my favorite kid?
I
or
get
even
it.
my favorite gun.
You can't do that. Hey, any lessons from Laugh on the Road that you can share with us or out on the hunt?
Yeah, I think I could have figured it out in my 20s that a sensible, responsible diet and good sleep.
Nice.
And avoiding social nonsense like peer pressure and standing up for what you believe in, because I was surrounded by a lot of so-called pressure to get stoned and drunk and be stupid. And I attribute that to my beloved father, Warren Henry Nugent, who was a drill sergeant in the U.S. Army Cavalry. He
Amen.
trained us kids. He trained us kids like he trained horses.
I was in the first Cav, so hats
you know
off
what
to
I'm
him.
talking about.
Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
Hey, how does the Nuge and his family celebrate Thanksgiving as we are just about to wrap up our visit with Mr. Ted Nugent? What do y'all do for Thanksgiving?
Well, first of all, I always say Happy Thanksgiving every day. I say Happy Veterans Day every day.
Amen.
Happy Memorial Day, Happy Independence Day every day. I really do. I celebrate it every day one way or another. But, you know, we got haunch o venison. We got some wild mallards and wood ducks. We got a wild turkey, an eastern turkey. We got squirrels and pheasants and doves. So every meal at our house is a sacred event. We just don't eat garbage. We don't, if you can't pronounce the ingredients, we don't let it in our house.
Yeah.
So we all get together. That's why I'm here in Michigan. Some of my sons and daughters and grandkids will get together, and we'll swear to God, you're not going to, maybe you will believe this. We will have a turkey in the dressing and those beans with the onions on top.
Yeah.
We'll have the marshmallows on top of the yams. We'll have all that traditional
All
stuff.
traditional,
You know,
yeah.
There's a place here in Jackson, Michigan called Texas Barbecue. I swear to God, it's as good as any brisket in the state of Texas. And I know some people are really getting angry when I say that, but these guys studied the best Texas brisket, and they're bringing that to our
Well,
ranch
hats off
on,
to them, man. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy birthday on December 13th. What do you do on your birthday? I guess every day's a birthday.
I go hunting.
There you go.
Shemaine makes me this thing called anchovy spaghetti, and she makes me a little white cake, and I get to eat some of the batter.
That's awesome.
That's the one day I eat garbage.
Happy birthday, December 13th, Ted. Merry Christmas, amigo. Happy New Year 2025. And like I said, Trump better nominate you as Secretary of Common Sense. Ted Nugent, thank you for entering the Living Large Theater, where you're always welcome. God bless you. And, man, thank you so much for giving us just a little bit of your time. And, again, you have an open invitation to join us here in studio anytime you want.
Well, Gary, Billy, living large should be the battle cry for everybody. Big thank you to Tommy Jenrich. And I hope you get down there to that White Sands Marina in Fort Isabel sometime.
Oh, dude, they would love it, man.
And so I've taken note of your kind and generous, loving invitations. Thank you very much. And God bless America. God bless real Texas.
Thank you.
Texas sportsmen, let's get after parks and wildlife and rein them in.
Absolutely. Amen. God bless you. Happy Thanksgiving, Ted. Thank you.
Godspeed, guys.
All right, the Living Large Theater podcast. Reach out to us at livinglargetheater@gmail.com. We're available on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Amazon Prime, the iHeart Podcast Network. If you want to become a sponsor of this fine show, reach out to our super producer, Noe, at 956-451-1633. Rate our podcast, share with a friend, leave us a comment, and more importantly, hit that subscribe button. Until the next episode, you keep living large, because we're living large.